All right, everyone, welcome to Psychonaut Sessions, your home for all things psycho. I'm Daniel Muller, and today I'm joined by a special guest. I love this man. He is a brother of mine. You know, I don't know if you have any like professional credentials or anything that we need to go through, but I would describe to you as a wizard if ever a wizard there was. You are truly a magician. In this channel, I not only talk comics, art, whatever, but I want to talk magic, esoterics, and things like that. And you are a man. I've been through some shit with you, and you definitely you hold some magic. Whenever I'm in your presence and we've been involved in certain things together, there's crazy shit that happens. I don't know what you do, but I think it's mostly because you're kind of like John the Baptist. You're just wild.
All right, I'll take it.
Brett Nichols, everybody. Brett Nichols.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Daniel. I would say my credentials are I am a function finding my way to being a part of a moment. This is
the fucking best business card I've ever seen in my life. So if anybody needs a function finding their way to being a moment, Brett Nichols is your man. He's an incredible like maestro chef, psychonaut extraordinaire. I don't know anybody better that travels in the psychonautic realms than you do. We've been through shamanic apprenticeship together. We've been through path working on the Kabbalistic tree of life together, which is no easy.
Possibly one of the only few groups to have ever done it over Zoom, which I think is a landmark. I think we've like tread new waters and broken through realms that are just now we're riding the ripples of that.
Yeah, and so people can kind of understand what that is. So anybody who knows me, they should know Kabbalah somewhat. I have a book on it, but it's, you know, an esoteric magical system that some say starts. Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, whatever. But path working, the Kabbalistic tree of life, is like an initiatory process that, you know, really, I think probably, I don't know, what do you say? It probably dates back to the ancient Egyptians. I don't know.
I think the Templar Knights possibly. It's such kind of a hodgepodge, and the Templar Knights were people that took all different faiths to their holy lands, and I think it was something that they were at least starting to put together, that maybe then Rosicrucians and other people put it into a path working. Right. But I think the roots, if anything, came from there, and that's why we have such this hodgepodge of different faiths. It would be my assumption.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's not an easy process, and we didn't go into it lightly. We had a pretty solid group. I think we ended up, out of starting with almost like 15 or so, I think we ended up with like 5 at the end that made it. But, you know, that kind of brings in my mind too, your dad, who kind of got us into it. Brett was raised like a magician should be raised. I mean, your dad is incredible, and he was kind of like our mentor through that. In fact, there was a period of time when I didn't want to go through it after we got up into the upper Sephiroth, you know, right around that time when we were in the abyss period with Dot. You know, I think
there's a prescribed break that just collectively, it was an insurmountable force to overcome to get that momentum going back in.
Sisyphus pushing up the rock.
Yeah,
I did not want to do it, and he called me and he was like, dude, you know that like we're all synced in with you, and if like you don't continue this, like we're all stuck there together, like, so fucking get up off your ass and do it. I completely love him for that. because
Yeah.
he did it in
Well,
his
and
way.
however deeply unconscious of a part of us that magnifying glass was being focused on during that period of the path working, it would have been detrimental to each of us to just leave it there. We had to move that piercing gaze on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
lives would have crumbled, and which is why people say never get into Kabbalah lightly.
Mhm.
If you're gonna like take it seriously. I mean, if you're doing cursory studies, whatever, but I'm still trying to process that whole experience. Like, I tried to write that book as a way to process it, but that book just ended up being didactic information. I still have not been able to emotionally really understand fully what went through me. I've been wanting to revisit that again lately. But anyway,
possibly just because I went on the journey with you. There's words in there that, sentences and little blips that trigger gnosis, that trigger awakening. But possibly just because we shared that experience. But I think it's written there. I think so one thing I talk about different tarot decks is I can almost tell the difference between a deck. Like, one of the decks I was given in childhood was the Hobbit deck by J.R.R. Tolkien. I don't think they went through the pathway to create that deck. Yeah. But this woman, Alice Smeet, goes to Haiti and creates the Ghetto Tarot. I think she has these books on her.
Yeah.
So it's like it works. And I do think the shamanic Kabbalah stands as a functioning work that maybe the new generation couldn't fully do the path working from that book, but they would understand, or they could get a glimpse of how it could be practical for their life. So what you come across as didactic knowledge is also a pitch of, hey, you incels, there's no reason to rip and tear. Right. There's actually more to life.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I wasn't really intending to talk about my book, but I mean, I've gotten feedback from other people of like that didactics and the heavy-handedness of that, but to have it from someone that I went through the path working with, that's very interesting to me. I mean, I actually use it as a resource manual for myself. That's why I created it, is because I went through it, and it kind of like Crowley made 777 as just his Kabbalistic resource. That's like, it wasn't, he wasn't intending, I'm going to make this publication. And that's, how it kind of came about for me. And so anytime I need to know, to reference back to myself, what's my real understanding of this tarot card or of this particular path on the Tree of Life, I just turn to that chapter in my own book and like, oh yeah, that's what I experienced and blah, blah, blah. And it may not totally apply today, but whatever. But something I wouldn't mind revisiting with you. And Autumn and I have talked, we wouldn't mind revisiting that with you again someday, but we definitely would like to amp it up a little bit and have some more in-person sessions.
In-person sessions is I mean, I think it was daring and brave of us. I think it was needed for humanity for us to attempt that. But yeah, in person. I mean, what's that phrase in the Bible, when two or more are gathered or whatever, this construct, whatever we've created, isn't quite solid enough to hold that power yet, maybe someday.
Well, we brought up tarot, so the reason why we wanted to kind of talk was art, the subject of art. And so you had what you sent me was so fucking amazing, and we can go through it, but you sent me kind of 3 different pieces of things to talk about. And the first one was, well, they all start with art, Da-da-da-da. Oh, your mastery of language. Okay, so art colon as the making of a complete human of oneself.
Which is a quote from your, I mean, it's a quote that you put in your book. You know,
really?
It's not a quote of you, but
Right.
you were quoting someone there. I always go back to that. It's close to the introduction of your book. A.R. Oraj on love psychological exercises.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but anyway, sorry, proceed.
No, there's no proceeding. There's just talking.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted you to know that's where I got that from, because it's something that I find myself going back to often. Art is, I think, a better way for us to talk about love. Love is too triggering, and they almost mean the same thing, which is everything a human could possibly experience and then some.
Whoa. Wow, you just went there. So it's weird you say that, because the concept of love as an esoteric notion, I really have a hard time with. I really can't. I wrap my head around it. You know, when people say the universe, the whole like fabric of the universe is based on, I know that you said stuff like that before, and I get like thrown out immediately. It is a weird triggering thing for me. I have no problem with like my love for my kids. I have no problem with, and I think it's because probably myself, and I think you might be different. I think I talked with you and Jonathan about this during our path working at one point, but I actually haven't ever had an entirely positive spiritual experience ever. Even so, and maybe why am I equating positivity with love? I don't know, but keep in mind I was raised a Christian. Okay. So, and I think this goes back to the art as making a complete of human self, like that notion. When I have had intense spiritual visionary experiences, like, so for instance, like a DMT level experience, because I know that you're a maestro of those particular realms, I don't receive that level of oneness that a lot of other people receive. I usually get the exact inverse. I usually get this cliphotic sort of space of isolation and terror that makes me want to come back here. It makes me just want to be here in this realm. And so maybe that's there's obviously some kind of deep-seated psychological bullshit there, and why I may have an aversion to love. I don't know.
I love it. I mean, my deepest meditation right now, I came across those Italian brothers in the 60s recording of the Lost Cosmonaut. And it said as singular, there were many, but they were just heartbeats going off into space, choking sounds of people asphyxiating, an SOS pattern that just kept getting lighter and lighter. And I've personally been working on this idea of humans becoming telepathic, and not my words, and I wish I could remember who they are, but ethical access to hivemind. And I couldn't think of a person, a member of our historical species, that would be more ethical to reach out to than this idea of a lost cosmonaut, who is kind of, if time isn't linear, wanting for us to reach out. And so I think that's what you're getting to with the Cliffoth. And a tree couldn't flower without those roots going down deep and sturdy and holding space strong and sturdy. So the bloom is pretty, and that's what, a week? There's 52 weeks a year.
Right.
Those roots are clinging to. If I'm thinking of the material embodiment of Earth's wisdom, I'm thinking dirt. I'm thinking mycelium. I'm thinking the rocks. I'm thinking dirt. And so those roots are clinging onto what's true in order to make what's pretty.
Yeah.
That's love.
Yeah. That's love. I'll sit with
prettiness. And 52 weeks of
Well, that's like, I'm relating that to because I'm like in the shit right now because I have 3 teenagers and 2 of them about ready to graduate. I'm relating that to parenthood.
Yes.
And just like there's very little like permanence of daily reward in parenting because of the level of stresses and dealing with it. But that it's like holding on to that earthing grip until you get that like 5 seconds of flowering of like them finally getting their fucking diploma and getting out of the fucking house, like, or whatever. Like that's just kind of where you mentioned hive mind, and that was actually your second notion of art as access to the hive mind. And for viewers that are not as adept as you, what are you kind of relating to as the hive mind? Because you mentioned telepathy, and everybody needs to like forget the X-Men notion of telepathy. And where do you want to go with that?
So beautiful that we're talking today. So literally just today, this concept has completely changed, flip-flopped in my mind. Humanity, we're one of the last species. We're bringing up the rear of consciousness. Telepathy is universal consciousness. We have sectioned it off in order to have individuality. We are regaining that level of consciousness, that telepathic level of consciousness, but we're doing it in a wonderfully unique way. So I've proposed in the past that it's humans' trauma that has created these mazes of individualness. So even after our species gets fully immersed in universal consciousness of full telepathy, we have all of these crevices in which consciousness can hide and pretend it's not the universe. And that's where I love this concept of, I think the full phrase is ethical options to access hive mind. And I know that's on either Lex or Lex Friedman or Duncan Trussell or one of the guests of one of the podcasts I've listened to. So hive mind is this beautiful notion of respecting every single one of our individually, telepathy is gritty. It's been my lifelong passion, and yet there's so many things like the lost cosmonaut I was not prepared to be connected with. Every porn that's ever been made, and then everyone that's ever watched that porn. It's full on telepathy is a bit much. That's everyone's bank account and password.
Right.
And every place you could possibly hide treasure or anything. It's a bit much. It's not useful.
I'm reminded of this. I can't remember which school of Buddhism that it's ascribed to, but it's like it's a concept of reincarnation that's not like the literal concept of reincarnation that we have. Like their concept of reincarnation is that all like space and time, it's kind of like the Philip K. Dick idea that all space and time is really just like collapsed into this like singular moment, almost as if like the Big Bang hasn't really happened, but the fact that the Big Bang has happened is a construct of our own consciousness. Like the Big Bang is our own like ideas and notion of this separateness.
Yeah.
And so that's what they see as reincarnation. It's not that you were Joan of Arc, literally, or anything like that. It's that every human being has access to all aspects of history and future and space, because we're experiencing all of that in this like singular moment. We like you said, we've just parsed it out. And I like how you like describe that to trauma as being like the pathways. You know, we experience the separation, and it's just like it's like a schizophrenic break. That's really been my whole theory of what's going on, because I've been trying to figure it out since I was a kid. Like, what is this? What the fuck is going on here? This is like, it's freaked me out, and I've always just wondered, like, really, it's just like we're the singular thing or being or consciousness that just had a schizophrenic break, and that's what this all is right now. I forget who said, but someone said my salvation is God's psychotherapy. I love it.
Really stuck with me.
Yeah. God, I need to find that quote, because that is fucking great. That's kind of the way it feels.
That could have been Jack Cornfield. I don't know though. Yeah, look it up. Yeah.
that is the way reality feels to me. And you know, even who is it? Gary Lachman. Do you know Gary Lachman? Oh yeah. So Gary Lachman, so his stuff is very academic, but he was the like guitarist for Blondie. Wow, and now he has turned into one of the most prolific writers on the history of like the occult traditions than like anyone in our modern day. He was just on Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio.
Okay. Oh, cool.
He's got a new book about Dreamtime coming out, but he's done works. He's done biographical works on Madame Blavatsky, Crowley. Let's see, Swedenborg. He's done like stuff on all the esoteric traditions. He's done a book on Hermes Trismegistus. Anyway, he did this book called Caretakers of the Cosmos, which the whole premise of it is it's about like the cosmos. It's very Gnostic, because it's about like the cosmos is fractured and broken in a way, and the whole point of our existence, like we have the level of consciousness that we do because, and we have these esoteric traditions because we're supposed to partner with the gods in helping like correct it, help fix it, help caretake the cosmos and get things kind of in order. And I'm extrapolating the way he says it, because I'm probably saying it in a very like polarized final way of like, it's broken, it's got to be fixed, you know. But it's a very interesting notion, and it kind of like fits in with all that. Yeah, you should check out Gary Lachman. He's that's definitely on the list. So I got none of that out of Blondie. Should I go back and recheck out Blondie? Did that make its way through into the? Yeah, I don't know. Well, he apparently, so he was in the rock and roll, if I remember correctly. He was in the rock and roll scene and everything, and got involved in the same groups that people like Bowie and others were in. Those that you know, rock scene of people that were getting into the occult. But I think if I remember correctly, he discovered a book by Colin Wilson.
Okay.
Who's pretty cool too. And
I haven't read any, but yeah, that name pops up. Yeah. Yeah.
And he just took off from there. And he you know, Blondie, you know, eventually fizzled away, and he just like dove full time into writing books about all of these occult traditions. And he turns out like a book a year, it seems like, and every book looks like a book that it would take me a lifetime to write. He's just so And I don't think he's like, some people can kind of pose that knowledge. I would consider myself kind of a poser because of the amount of research I have to do to put into one statement or whatever. But when you hear him talk, like you'll hear him talk with Miguel, and he's just spouting this shit out of the top of his head. Like he is a archive of occult information. I don't think he's much of a
if a poser is one who is too in the way of oneself, then maybe you encounter that at times.
Oh, you're not the first person who's told me that. Including my higher self. How do you think Dot was for me, man? How do you think that Abyss was for my... Well, you just emptied your glass there and we're recording. Let the audience know what you're drinking here.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So this was a blend. I made a video of 20 different whiskeys. I encountered whiskey. I was late to really understanding alcohol. So only about like 6 years ago did I really like it. And I don't drink much, but my local liquor store has a different whiskey on sale every week. So after emptying 20 bottles, I still have well over 20 bottles.
Wow.
And then I have my secret bookshelf stash, which that's for drinking alcohol. This is for like opening my brain. so here I have Kalila 12, Kleinlish 14, and Talisker 10.
Ooh.
Bring out the Kleinlish for where this conversation is going.
Nice.
Some serious thought. Let's see, weapon grade thought.
We don't want to get too serious.
Right.
I mean, I see where you're going with the concept of love. I think I get that in the hive mind. And
well, so love for me is literally every single thing humans could experience. There isn't a spectrum or depth of human experience that isn't accounted for within my definition of love.
What?
And that is the tree and the roots. And it's not a flower. Love cannot just be a flower. Love has to be a universe that affords a planet dirt, that affords a tree life, that affords a flower. It has to be all of it.
And all the shit that comes with it?
It has to be everything.
Torture, really?
Literally everything.
So you're like, a tree in all of its seasons.
A tree in all of its seasons, a planet in all of its multiverse outcomes. Love is nuclear annihilation. That is the depth of love.
That's really insane for you to bring up today.
Blessed be to the poor little Russians who have no idea who they're taking on.
Oh my God. That's actually really, I chime in with that. I'm glad you brought up the idea of a tree, because I've been of course there's like, a tree of life, and that's talked about in my last book, my next book coming out. There's this whole chapter in which I don't even talk about the 3 realms of the shamanic universe without the tree. The tree is the model for that. It is absolutely the model of the cosmos. So, and every indigenous tradition has a tree as that model, whether it's Norse traditions or Peruvian or whatever.
I think the Egyptians abstracted the most with the canopy of the tree being Nut herself of the Milky Way, and the galaxy is almost standing as the canopy of the highest of highs.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But you're correct, absolutely. And I really see it as iconography, and I think they did too. I think they built the tree iconography within their system. Yeah,
they definitely did. I almost wanted to, my next book after this upcoming one, I thought, I'm just going to write a whole book on trees. I'm just going to write a book. But then but then I was just like, but I don't think I don't think it would do it justice. Like that has to be an experiential, like, way of interacting with reality, of like the way human being participates with reality. There's no, I don't, unless it was just like a book of poetry, you know, or something like that, or paintings.
How to be more tree.
Look at you, just had that right there. Who was that?
Well, it's illustrated by Annie Davidson, and that's the only name it says. So
Really?
go
Davidson or Davis?
Oh, Annie Davidson, and it's written by Liz Marvin and illustrated by Annie Davidson, and it's wonderful. I just got it for Christmas, and it's really beautiful. It's that book of poetry you were talking about.
All right, well then it's already been done, so I don't need
yeah, yours is more unique. And also, you know, personally, I've never been called, part of the path working is doing your own tarot, and that felt like, okay, invent your own dialect of Chinese.
Right.
That's
right.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
But landscaping has brought me that experiential knowledge that the major arcana are trees, the minor arcana are plants, and I absolutely have a tarot deck within me, and it's just about learning the plants as much as I possibly can for it to fully come through me. But yeah, I get what you're saying there, and there's absolutely a connection between the map of the universe that we've been exposed to, both through the shamanic and the pathworking, that can be described through plants and trees.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that like the tarot is like just becomes inside of you. I'm finding more and more, and I've heard this or read it or whatever from people that I experience, or that I consider very experienced magicians and sorcerers, that you soon get to a place where the need to have these various tools or altar sets or whatever, not that you still can't have them, but they don't become a necessity. Like the altar, the mesa, the tarot, whatever, like you become the like conduit of everything that you need. And I feel like you're kind of starting to like definitely walk into that. And I'm definitely feeling like I'm starting to get there with my own art that I'm creating. And so it's, you know, it's a really empowering feeling, and it takes like the Pope out of the equation, you know.
Yeah,
like,
I love it.
the Hierophant isn't like a separate thing, like you're the Hierophant, and so, that's like the whole point of all of it to begin with.
You know how like martial arts has physical movements. My latest revelation with the tarot is I do readings right now with 2 different decks. Since the Ghetto Tarot is made to be a shadow of the Rider-Waite, I do a reading with the Rider-Waite and a reading with the Ghetto Tarot. And the function of like, what does it, like, it seems like a gesture, like a metaphysical gesture to shine the light of the sun on the Empress. You know, like that seems like a metaphysical gesture. That's 2 cards. We have infinite, you know, metaphysical gestures within the expression of just these 52 cards.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like the Empress is one who, this nurturing figure who points her son, her attention inward. Instead of engaging with the world like this and pointing her attention outward, she focuses her son inward and spins that wheel to water all of the plants that she's growing, and then has her plants, her being, interact with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, it becomes a reminder to function like the empress of shining this sun that I normally have as my attention goes out to things. You know, in meditation, we can kind of like, we're almost like neutralizing our attention sometimes. Hardly ever are we like, okay, this attention, this sun is gonna shine on parts of me that have never, you know, seen my sun before. And
Wow.
So yeah, within the tarot being internalized, it's like internalized as this martial art almost, I guess, to bring us back to art.
Yeah. No, I completely feel that. It becomes a very physical experience for me. And I completely ascribe to the usage of like multiple decks, and because each one of those is like another person's consciousness, so you're getting like this like interplay of communication going on between two different individuals, and then with my own understanding coming into that, because that's like the next party coming in. Yeah, I totally get that. Good breakdown of the Empress, by the way. Holy shit. You need to write your own tarot.
Literally 10 months of work of like every day, every metaphysical notion or spiritual notion that I've ever learned, I've recontextualized within a moment. And what that means to me is I am accountable every single moment of my life for bringing, I would say all of me, but it's almost like a toolkit, right? So it's like, if I get to choose who I bring to this next moment, I have a huge toolkit at my disposal of who I'm going to bring to this next moment. And then you really get the sense of, Philip K. Dick talked about figures like Simon Magus traveling backwards through time and unwinding themselves and finding the beginning. And the moment, I mean, this leads into my own YouTube channel where I, you know, really break apart the moment, but that's where we find it all. Like, there's our reflection of the moments, which, like you said, is all this didactic knowledge and so many other wonderful things, us building goals and plans and dreams. But then there's the moment and the raw terror of the moment. And that's it. That's Plato's cave, I believe. You know, like the shadows, our fire is our intellect and our consciousness. If we focus our consciousness inward, we see these shadows, and that's one thing. And then if we send our consciousness outside, we get the moment, you know. And,
right.
I think I think of any writing I've ever read, Plato's Cave comes up more in my mind than anything else.
All the time. It feels like ever since I came across that in my life, it seems to be the template for every fucking learning experience, every just experience in life in general.
It's like Bo Burnham's How the World Works is just Plato's Cave, and everything is just Plato's Cave.
Yeah. It almost like it feels cliche to a point, but it's like it so works though. It
works. That's an interesting thing. A literary function that works. That's a very interesting concept.
Yeah. I mean, that's why, you know, people always refer to like Sisyphus as like when things get hard, because you're like always just pushing that rock up the mountain. It's just like it's like that whole Campbell notion of like it goes beyond like a myth being just this like a stereotype or whatever. It has become an aspect of it's become a meme, right? It's become an aspect of our cultural shared understanding of something, which are like the true I mean the true definition of a meme, not but also the new definition too,
I mean, I have never before seen a clear path towards humanity's finding the obsolescence of war than memes. Memes will end war where nothing else, no other human quality could possibly end war than memes.
Memes nowadays, like the online memes, have become what the postmodernists were like worried that we were going to get this into this hyper reality where now we've been able to completely contextualize like an understanding of something that makes or breaks everything. Like there's like advertising agencies right now are like they don't have any idea what to do. Most like the whole arena of marketing, because Dragon, my son, was actually interested in marketing, so of course I was like doing a whole lot of research for him that he then was just like, oh fuck it, forget it, because if Dad's interested in it, I'm not going to do it.
Oh, no. Are you hip to Edward Bernays?
I have no idea what.
Okay, we'll get back to that, but yeah, continue. Sorry.
Well, just all the research I was doing was that advertising agencies and the whole world of marketing strategy and understanding the science behind it, they cannot keep up with memes and the online world and the way things fluctuate through social media and memes in particular. It's just that they do completely change a culture. Like that you can completely make everybody depressed in our whole culture overnight with a single meme, or you can completely uplift them. It's insane the viral nature of these things.
Isn't it the material manifestation of this concept of ethical access to hive mind? We all get to feel the exact same thing that sources back from an original experience to a moment we had.
Yep.
That now we can share with each other in that moment. And it doesn't even have to be the linear moment. It's broken through time too. So it posting on the internet and it rippling here and it rippling there, and it breaks through this concept of linear time, as well as connecting us to the deepest parts that we're willing to share.
That's the perfect loop back to the hive mind notion, dude. That's perfect. That is perfect. So who's this Edward Bernays?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so just like what you should do is rip a piece of paper, write Edward Bernays on it, soak it in tea, and then dry it and burn the edges of it, and then fold it, and then like slip it in one of Dragon's socks for him to find. It's the name that changes everything. That's
the most voodoo shit I've ever heard.
He's the capitalist Alan Moore.
What?
Yeah.
Bernays?
He is the propagandist Hitler wishes he was.
What? Oh my God. A pioneer in the field of public relations and propaganda. He is scary looking.
His esoteric knowledge, and he was the first advertiser to understand you're advertising to people's subconscious. You don't give a fuck about people's consciousness. You are selling people's subconscious things, and they have decided to buy your product 5 seconds before their conscious mind has the thought to buy your product.
Wow.
Yeah.
He looks like he would be a capitalist Alan Moore. You are spot on with that. Holy shit. World War I, man. Wow.
He is shaped all of our history, all of Americans' history from the viewpoint of money, and the viewpoint that if you think that we are ruled by corporate elite, that is Edward Bernays served them that power on a silver platter. I refer to those people as people losing their power instead of people in power, because if I think of them as in power, none of their actions make any sense. But if I think of Putin as someone who has stolen a shit ton from his people are waking up to that fact, he's losing all of his power, then all of his actions make perfect fucking sense, and it's just transparent as fuck. Okay, those losing power. And then I think of all of my past enemies, and it's like those are the people that need healing the most.
Yeah.
I think of all of my allies. Those are the ones willing to offer the healing the most.
Right.
Oh, this is a great scenario. This civil war is going to be amazing. You know, a love of war fought playfully, gently, and curiously on battlefields of orgasm.
Wow. I hope so. Jesus Christ.
But
yeah.
That I also am possibly the most optimistic person I've ever met.
Very much so. Very much so. But we need that we especially today. That's awesome. Yeah, I am going to look this dude up, man.
That's a rabbit hole.
His face is like, I just looked him up on Wikipedia on my computer over here. His eyes are just like, they're just like piercing at me.
Well, and
like he knows so much.
None of us knew the name of the person who shaped our world.
Right.
And that's brilliant. If anyone ever thinks that one person can't change the world, fuck you, Edward Bernays.
Yeah. Yeah. the father of public relations, which is everything.
Everything.
That shapes everything.
Everything.
Because that's all like the presidency is.
Yeah.
That's all like any of these positions of power are anywhere. It's just public relations. And
well, our modern materialist world, it was shaped in a way by him. And there's actually other figures. Once you go down that rabbit hole, you'll see a cast of figures.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes.
Yeah. Vienna, Austria, Hungary, man. So much.
But that piece of paper that you write Edward Bernays, soak it in tea, burn the edges, slip it inside.
I'll try it. You know, Dragon is so averse to any of like my magical notions or whatever that he would just be horrified if I was first talking about him right now, but also just like if I tried to implement some sort of magic like that on him. But all the more reason for me to probably do it.
Right.
Really.
I think it's a name that could have a lot of significance to him. You know, it's a history and a story that I think could have a lot of significance to him. And you know, the concept of I always come back to the person that has the least interest and the least knowledge of math. That soul understands math better than anyone on the planet. So an apparent disinterest of something can actually reflect mastery of a subject. So watch out for that.
Really, I've always felt that way about math myself. That now that you say that, but I've had this like interest in it as I got into the path working.
Right.
And coming back into it, and the way because you and your father are like incredible mathematicians, and watching the two of you work, I've always felt that urge to jump back in. I just don't know how. I would literally have to take 5th grade algebra over again just to even get started.
You don't necessarily. I think that brings us back to art. I think you could look at any of your pieces of art, and if you were wanting to perceive mathematics from it, you could just sit. There's actually something that I really want to bring up. There's so many images in your comic books, but and I absolutely love. I don't think you could ever know, even once we become telepathic, how much it means to anyone who's sat in Baxley's Lodge to then visualize that in a comic book. It's like
I wanted to immortalize it.
Oh my God. So there's this concept of humans becoming gods. And the one thing I love is this woman, Jessa Reed, who's a comedian, you know, Meth P. All right, you know.
Love her, love Jessa Reed.
Right.
Fuck yeah. Awakening OD, man.
So she says shit, you know, like in a dream, when shit gets too weird, you wake up. So there's these seeds that we can plant that then wake people up, and she's thinking of it kind of on like a material realm, but then those of us who have already sat in Baxley's Lodge, who already have a degree of awakening, to see it reflected in your podcast, on YouTube or in the comics is so validating. And any power that like Walter Cronkite served humanity but had over humanity is like that spell's broken by seeing your beloved friend who you've sat in ceremony with on a platform. You're just like, there's no, it breaks humanity down. There's humanity. It's humanity.
Yeah,
but
man.
One of your images, now I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the camera to focus.
Just so you know, everybody, I did not like encourage him to bring up my shit. I don't normally propagandize my own work, but what are we looking at? All right, yeah. So yeah, that's when he.
The most intriguing part of this picture for me is this through line. This part of the darkness extending from the back of Baxley is so that's my favorite part of that picture, and I'd love for you to just, if anything comes to mind by me bringing that picture up.
Well, so that was the moment where he was just he had his staff. Yeah. And he was behind me, holding and like pushing it out of me. And what he was trying to get me to do was to fucking vomit.
Yeah.
And to get like out just like my own fucking insecurities, my own projections, my own like all of these reflections, these negative reflections and mirrors that just keep cropping up in a person's life who's completely insecure, which I am. And just having me finally materialize that into just whatever it was going to be and personifying it. And in order to do that this is what I love about shamanic style magic, is that he had to be a poser, right? He had to embody that.
Yeah.
Himself, like, so he had to take on the whipping of me and the chastising of me and just like all the shit that he knew was completely fucking illusion and was just me making up shit in my head about myself. Like, he had to just throw that back at me in this most ridiculous fashion to get me to see how fucking, ridiculous it all was. So that's kind of like,
to see how ridiculous it all was. Can you speak to the what? Can you speak to the it? How ridiculous it?
Well, so that's the whole notion of like insecurity is, and even if insecurity is founded on an actual trauma, right? Because this doesn't belie a traumatic experience that someone has gone through, but the after effects, the ripple effects that carry over, usually just over time mutate and turn into these whole new voices and things in your head and aspects to where it shapes every experience that you have of your reality, which is why you get someone who finally just becomes broken. They don't want to leave their house. They're scared. They can't continue in relationships, or if they are, every relationship is contentious and they're constantly defensive and blah, blah, blah. It's all fucking fake.
The extremely successful businessman who's hollow and empty
yes,
inside is almost portraying the same function.
Exactly the same, which is why in my area of business, I'm actually thankful that my boss sees me for who I am and has me come in to kind of help expose that in other people. To just like, hey, can we just be real here? Like, I know you're putting on this, like, you want to climb the ladder, whatever, but it really, let's just be real human beings and let's try to find the best way to be of service and blah. But that's what it is. Like the whole thing, the what is like is completely fake. It's a fucking illusion. It's like it's smoke and mirrors. That you're asking about ultimately doesn't mean that it's not a real thing,
right?
But it doesn't have to be literal. And that's like, to me, that's the big difference between when people talk about spiritual shit or the concept of soul or whatever. And this goes into your next aspect of art with the new sphere concept, and we'll get into that in a second. But soul, to me, I'm not much of a person that believes in spirit necessarily. Okay. I'm a person that is all about soul, and I mean soul. And like, if you read I can't remember the name. Jez, I'm talking about when I say Jez Grew. I'm gonna have to Mumbo Jumbo, the novel by Ishmael Reed. Okay, no, I'm gonna have to check that out. Dude, knowing who you are and your connection and love to jazz, and like true jazz and blues, from the like real, like the way that the African Americans in this world really brought that into the world. Like Elvis, all these people are fucking like, fuck you all. Like that era of the early 20th century of the African American culture and like what they brought to music is all epitomized in this science fiction novel called Mumbo Jumbo, written by Ishmael Reed, which is about all of these people in the world getting overtaken by jazz groove, which is totally just people breaking out in jazz dance. Nice. And it won't stop. And the elites of the world are like, we gotta fucking stop this shit. We gotta stop jazz. We can't let these people like smoking marijuana and fucking, because they're breaking, like jazz grooves taking over everything. That's awesome. It's a fucking there's been book.
Literal dancing outbreaks in the world. Like the one I'm most familiar with is the Tarantella, where they blamed it on a spider.
Yeah.
Like, in some instances, people dance to where their feet bleed.
Yeah.
And I think there's been a couple deaths. And
totally. I think even references that in the book. And this was written. This was written, I'm just like 72, but he kind of comes out of the whole Beat Generation era.
Cool.
Ishmael Reed does. Soul, like that soul, like the true notion of soul in terms of music, like that's what exists, and that's what drives the universe and what drives creativity. It's what drives everything, and there's no truth. Like you and probably my definition of soul would be like what your definition of love is. Like it is, or maybe like love is that tree, and like soul is that juice that like keeps everything going and all the nutrients going. It's like
I think you're there with it's one of the. It's so hard for us humans to break out of duality.
Yeah.
But one of the most beautiful creation stories I've come across is that Lurianic mythos, Isaac Luria, from way the fuck back when, 1400s. So he postulates that there's this divine effulgence, this divine force, and then this primordial source as well. And so what we're living in is this field of divine sparks in the husk of this primordial essence. And I think within that is the concept of spirit and soul, and how much. So in my own interpretation, which I've shared with you of the Lurianic mythos, where it's a woman, because it boggles my mind how Isaac Luria perfectly describes a womb and then attributes it to a male god. But, my interpretation of the Lurianic mythos is, in the beginning there was nothing, because the infinite wanted to masturbate, so she contracted herself, creating naught, and then filled that naught with orgasm. We are the naughty orgasm. So within that framework, orgasm would be this divinity. But then what holds orgasm? What makes that orgasm possible? The structure of orgasm. What is that? That's this primordial essence. So maybe soul is the sound of the two coming together. Maybe soul is one part but the other. You know, I don't know, but yeah, there's something going along in this dance that creates the soul, the silence, and wholeness all at once.
Yeah.
And supports it all.
Yeah. Something. Yeah.
Something.
I feel that, and I'm like that part of my brain that just always takes it back to didactics. I see that interplay when I think that's what they talk about when people talk about that there are like 3 layers of the cosmos or 3 worlds or 3 pachas of the shamanic universe. It's really that what you're saying. It's not 3 literal worlds of like a higher world, lower world, and middle world. It's that like that primordial, you know, concrete nature of reality, and that you described it better. Whatever that other piece, that effulgence, like, and that the interplay between the two, and the way that the way actually just the universe is trying to interact with itself really is what I think it is.
God's fractured schizophrenic mind. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So soul is what the noise of a broken God mind. Yeah, all I love
static.
It.
Totally. Before we get to like the third idea of what art it like, it's gonna be so funny. I'm gonna put on here that the whole concept of this conversations about art, and people are gonna be like, what the fuck? They're not even talking about art. We are talking about art. This is art. This is
so when you
art.
see us launch our upcoming NFTs, you'll understand.
What could be more? I'm saying this from an uneducated NFT stance, but I know I have cursory knowledge of what it means. What could be more a facsimile of a facsimile? What could be more postmodern?
Right.
I just don't understand. Anyway, no, let's go to an interlude here. Let's go to
all right.
Right. Because I never really, so we're gonna pause for a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, before we break your mind even more. And why don't you give everybody a little bit of background as to like how you were raised?
Sure. So
I love how you just, okay, first of all, before you continue, I love how you just break into that of like, okay, yeah, no big deal, but it's really mind-blowing. Like you have a really mind-blowing childhood that most human beings don't get. So you're very fortunate is what I'm trying to say. Okay, go ahead. I'll shut up.
Very fortunate. And I really try to make the most of the hand that I've been dealt, because I feel like I was dealt like all aces with like just jokers up my sleeve, just thousands of jokers up my sleeve. My dad tells the story of my birth. My mom tells it too. I like the way my dad tells it better. They're very differing. My mom says it happens in the morning, but that's backed up with the fact that my birth certificate very clearly says 7 p.m. It actually says 1927, so that's pretty clearly p.m. But my dad tells the story. I was born at home. My mom was in the bathtub. There were no candles in my mom's story because it was daylight. I don't understand that, but there are candles in my dad's story. And when the midwife delivered me, my dad was the one to cut the cord. And so the midwife handed me to my dad, and I opened my eyes and looked at him and laughed. And to me, The great Louis Armstrong has this song Azalea, where he talks about the azalea flower being his first love, and laughter is my first love, and I'll cheat on every woman I have with laughter. It's my ongoing mistress. My dad went to Vietnam. He was raised on a farm in Cowland, Kansas, kind of, by my grandpa, who was a cattle rancher, who in my dad's story was only in town to beat him for all of the things that he probably did while, my grandpa was away. My dad had 2 brothers, and I think the death and the war in Vietnam, my dad didn't want to go to war, but he wasn't drafted. My grandpa signed him up. My dad wanted to go to art school. There was no better art school than the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
In all of human time, that might be like the crash course.
Yeah.
For an American Kansas boy on what art is.
I'm a little surprised. I completely did not know that your father was a Vietnam vet.
Navy, I don't know much of his experience. My
dad was a Vietnam vet, and that shaped my whole childhood.
Yeah, he has a visceral reaction to those PBR boats. So I don't know what he experienced. He talks about, I don't know if he personally killed anyone, but I think he feels very responsible for a death, whether he did it or not. And he feels like whatever astral projection blockage he has not really been able to do that much or dream much. He feels killing people has served that blockage. So he came back and he studied every world religion. His youngest brother got him into Scientology. He rose through the ranks of Scientology to where he was running a Sea Org. And then I was born in California, of all places. So glad we moved to Colorado. But my dad was working at Rockwell NASA at the time on the space shuttle as an engineer. And it was a 2-hour commute. And the apartment building that I lived at was like big, like hundreds of people, if not like 1,000 people, and there was a kidnapping, and it was on the news. But my dad was 2 hours away, and he just saw that there was a kidnapping from our apartment building, and so that kind of spurred us moving to Colorado. The same brother, Jeff, that got him into Scientology, also at that time lived in crazy mountain town in Colorado, like not even Nederland where you've been, like Rawlinsville, which is like even weirder.
Weirder place than Netterville?
Okay, so literally there is no weirder place than Ward, Colorado, and I'll die on that hill.
I'm writing that shit down. Ward, Colorado.
Oh, be warned. So their sheriff, when I was growing up, Fuzzy Bob, outlawed spandex.
I'm in love already.
Right,
That's amazing. That is the best.
So in my upbringing, I was 2. I think my sisters took the brunt of Scientology, and Scientology is a child abusing fuck cult of epic proportions.
Yeah.
So I didn't get that. But I think that like secondhand exposure helped to like enrich my whole childhood. Was like being dealt all of these wonderful cards of like, you're a creator, you can do anything you want, here's the whole world, here's how it works. And I think another child that might have just never landed, but the more, let's call them rich or full, the harder qualities that my sister Lauren and my sister Andy and my sister Danae had to go through enriched my own experience to kind of give me that depth of roots to grow my tree from. So neither my dad nor my mom wanted to expose me to going to church on a regular basis. My dad wanted to teach me that all world religions are saying exactly the same thing. They're saying, how do you become a god? Step 0, step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 0 is always the silence. In the beginning, there's nothing. Find the silence, be okay there, return there often. That's your foundation. If you're building too high, if your roof is collapsed, if there's something wrong with your infrastructure, return to your foundation, return to that silence. So my dad's library growing up was the Logos, or the Library of Alexandria. I mean, on one hand I had the joy of sex. On the other hand, I had like all world religions. I had weird fucking books like Easy Journey to Other Planets. Tiny. What the fuck?
It's that easy.
13. I'm like, what?
You can fit it in your pocket.
So my dad worked at NASA, built the rocket ship, and has this book. But then on my mom's side, she knew that my dad had a huge distaste for organized religion. My dad talks about organized religion like organized religion talks about Satan.
Yeah.
So my mom would always remind me that she would willingly go to any church of my choosing, and we just sit in. And so a few times, I think the Unity Church was the only one we went to more than once. But there were a few times that we just checked out churches, and that was really important for me to not think that any godly inheritance I had wasn't bestowed equally. Let's say there's a place on Earth where thousands of feet below ground there's plutonium, and then concrete, and then let's say there's just a raw sewage factory over that. That's consciousness. That's the same life experiences I'm experiencing, as Gandhi's experiencing, the Dalai Lama.
Yep.
That's that richness. So my dad traced religion back to the hieroglyphs. He figured that was the oldest, and longer than I've been alive has been trying to decipher the hieroglyphs, and has recently, within the past couple years, been trying to reconcile, this came to him in dreams, his physics knowledge of engineering space shuttles and his hieroglyphs knowledge, and he calls them physiglyphs. So I hit him up the other day with the thought, I was thinking how ludicrous it would be to read, without any concept of music, someone writing down scat singing, skeet ba do ba la da boo. I'm not quite sure what they're trying to say. Maybe it's an invocation of some sort. But then I was like, okay, so Dad, so you got physiglyphs. What if it's physiglyphany? What if there's some beat that the hieroglyphs have to be to to get it all going?
Oh my God. He's probably working it out as we speak.
Right. But I had the kind of dad where my science experiments were for school, for high school. My first science experiment was astral projection. Then I had Kirlian photography. And then for my senior year, it was building a Tesla coil that when I plugged in the machine that me and my dad built, we shorted out the school. And my science teacher said, "Hey, I'll give you a C if you don't plug that thing back in." So yeah,
oh my God.
Interesting interesting childhood.
Oh shit. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All in the mountains of Nederland, Colorado.
Yeah. I lived with my mom until I was so my dad and my mom broke up when I was 5. My mom, we lived for a brief period of time in Jamestown, which is another small town in Colorado that is not worth mentioning. But
no Ward. It's no Ward.
Yeah, no Ward, no San Luis Valley, no interesting place at all. But moved to Boulder, and so my mom with my stepdad Doug, her husband, my stepsister Desmond, and my sister Andy was back in the picture at that point. Huge house, TV in every room, hot tub, 2-car garage. My dad at the time had a friend, a jazz musician, who owned a school bus. And so he was living in a school bus in the middle of the woods, no electricity, no running water. The wood stove where the chimney was built wrong, so it did a 90-degree inside the school bus before being funneled out. So before, like when you started a fire, before it would catch and the smoke would go outside, you'd have to wait outside for 30 minutes, 40 minutes for the fire to get going. So, there's a well up the street that we'd pump water, year round. We had a 50-gallon drum of rice, a 50-gallon drum of beans for food. And so when I was 13, my mom said, do you want to live with me or do you want to live with Dad? But the no electricity meant, my mom had her shows, and I felt included when I got to watch her shows. But that was one level of inclusion. And at my dad's house, I say my dad read to me at night. It wasn't like books that I would read. He read to me just whatever the fuck he was reading. So like some completely non-fiction Egypt book or like Shogun. I remembered him reading me Shogun at like probably 14, but then he's reading it and I'm only catching like 1 chapter out of 10 because I'm only staying there every other weekend.
Right.
Whatever he's reading. And that inclusion felt like the inclusion that I wanted to experience puberty. Puberty is this crazy change, and it's like, if I'm already going through uncertainty, I want that uncertainty to be kind of reflected in real life. I don't want real life to be this weird image that has no reflection of uncertainty at all while I'm going through uncertainty. That's fucked. That's discongruent. I want bears, and if I'm thirsty, I want to walk 3/4 of a mile and pump water into a container that I can't even physically carry if I fill it all the way up. So I fill it halfway up, and then I know my strength's growing as I can finally carry 1 of those containers full and then 2 of those containers full. It's like I get a very visceral understanding of my puberty and this thing that's going on. And I love my mom. I'm not trying to discount that at all. That anchor, especially financial anchor into the world, has blessed me my whole life. It's offering me roots in a different way. It's like this world on one sense will chew you up and spit you out if you don't prove your biology's worth of existing every fucking month.
Yeah.
That's hard, so to have some sort of anchor into the financial world allowed me to be this and not just another poor kid,
Yeah.
And it helped. The high school where I went to had showers, and I was hardly the only kid that didn't have running water, so there was a bunch of us after school that would be showering, and I got that solidarity, which I think under current Colorado law, if you don't have running water and you have a child, it's child abuse, and they'll take your fucking kid away. So,
oh, wow.
I call that kidnapping. You can call it child abuse all you want, but I call that, state-sanctioned kidnapping.
Yeah, considering the way you were raised, that's like, yeah, I mean, that was a
Yeah.
foundational thing for you.
Foundational. I've never appreciated. I've never looked at water the same. Running water to me is incredible, and I don't think you could know it. Like if you're not pumping water, and then like we had a log set up, right? And then we had a sink, but then underneath the sink was a bucket, so you couldn't just be mindless about it. You had to know when that bucket was going to be full so you could empty it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it teaches you why we made pipes, why we made plumbing. If you never live without plumbing, you don't understand why we made plumbing.
Right.
So yeah, it was important in a way. And then Netherland High School, you know, there was at times like 40 kids in my graduating class. It fluctuated in between 30 and 50, you know, and I think 25 graduated. Not me. I put in my 4 years, but
yeah,
it was different. You know, it was there was no cliques. The football kid was playing chess with the band kid. You know, it was just all it was interesting.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I think people know Columbine in Colorado, and that happened. The trench coat mafia and shot up the place. At that time, I was a freshman, I believe. The seniors, who all wore trench coats, were allowed to keep their rifles in their locker at Netherland High School because they so often went hunting after school. So it was just such a culture shock of how behind we were from other people, and what a unique experience we were getting. And I think the year that I graduated, that school changed a lot, you know, and it had to. I mean, me and my friends made a rock illegal in the school. Like they had to ban lepidolite, this like geological rock, because lepidolite contains lithium, and we would sell it to kids before tests and say, oh, suck on this rock and you'll get the lithium. We were just fucking selling rocks, like, but we made like a rock illegal. Like that school like had to change after us.
Even with that change though, Netherland has this, because you took me there
Right.
at a very, very pivotal time in my life.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I was my second marriage had just ended, and it was like incredibly crazy. And
your Pakawatch, what is that word? Your journey to the mountain?
That was I went to my Vision Quest spot in San Luis.
Yeah.
And
before that,
right before that. And then I drove and met you in Boulder, and you were like, hey, want to go to Netherland? And I was like running on like 1 hour sleep after like being on Vision Quest for over, you know, well over 24 hours. I can't remember how long.
And not only did I take you hiking through the woods, then I took you dancing all night with lesbians.
Yeah, it was amazing. But Netherland is definitely one of those kinds of towns. When you enter it, though, it's almost like this time warp.
Yes. Yeah, like the sheriff's station. It's like
it's weird.
1800 ghost town.
The whole feeling of the place is still very like it's in its own pocket universe. And it was. After that whole experience with you two, I was sick the whole time too. Remember?
Yeah. Oh yeah, very much.
As fuck. I was so sick. I drove home and back to Kansas City, and immediately walked right into a sweat lodge by Diane Davis Reed.
Oh wow!
Like
I didn't
after
know that.
that, like immediately, I didn't even get home. She called me as I was like. She just happened to call me as I was coming through, Topeka. Mm-hmm. And she's like, where are you? And I'm like, well, I'm on my way back from Colorado right now. I just saw Brett. And she's like, I'm getting ready to like pour a lodge if you can make it for an hour.
That's so perfect.
I'm gonna have to do that. That was a crazy.
It makes so much sense that I was preparing. It wasn't just that I was torturing my good friend. I was preparing you for that.
Oh my God. You made the most amazing concoction for me, though, that carried me through all of that. It was this giant jug of boiled water with ginger, lemon, and garlic.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, what the fuck is he making? But like, it sustained me. It was like pivotal to my survival. Like, it was, oh my God. I can't tell you how much I loved that concoction you made me.
Good. Yeah, I try to drink that year round. I mostly drink that in the winter, but I try to really drink it year round. It's really healing. Sometimes I'll put turmeric. I don't always put garlic, but yeah, lemon and ginger and a little honey, and cayenne is good in there too. And yeah.
Maybe it wasn't garlic. Maybe it was turmeric. I don't know. I don't remember.
I bet that time it was garlic. That makes sense.
It cleansed my shit out. That's for sure. That's for sure.
I took you to the most magical spot I know on Earth. The windy spot is the most magical spot I've ever been to in my life.
It is. There's nothing like you. I remember we were up there, and I got pictures of us up there. Maybe I'll display them as we're talking here. But
ooh, I'd love that.
You said like from this place, like the sun is different here than it is anywhere else. Yeah, I remember you telling me that, and I don't think I.
Colorado.
It is, and that spot though, viscerally, it was like there was something so completely different about that one. Area. You saw the whole world below you, and the sun was just. It wasn't torturous, but it was definitely like you felt like it was just right there.
Yeah.
Just felt like it was this orb that was just like right there. You could reach out and touch it.
If the sun is Jesus, then the sun we experience is the Gospel of Thomas. Just like
oh, that's such a good
maybe
part.
Parts of Matthew. Yeah.
The Gospel of Judas is my second favorite. Okay, so art as it represents communication through interconnected news spheres.
Yeah.
God damn it, Brett. God damn it. I actually, my next, I'm not talking about this to promote. I'm talking about this to give myself context for the conversation. Okay. My next comic coming out is a story I've been working on forever, starring a character, Simon Myth, who is actually kind of a modern day version of Simon Magus. It's a very Gnostic story. In fact, I just actually talked with Miguel earlier today from Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio, and he wants me to send it to him, and we're gonna set up a time for me to come on and talk about it.
Awesome.
But the way I describe the other world in that book, in that story, is I describe it as the news sphere. That's exactly what it is. Like it is mind itself. It's an emanation of intelligence. It is what it is. But the way you talk about that in terms of like what art is, I keep hitting my fucking thing. It's probably killing the audience, but that's fine. And kind of relating that to the hive mind is like all these little pockets are these like new spheric entities, these islands of mind. And the way to breach that is like, that's what art is, just breaching that. They're like, you can't describe really what art is, but art is breaching those new spheres. It's a way of, it's a communication branch.
Communication, I don't even think that, I don't even see that being personified in like Greek gods and stuff. It's like they didn't even have that level of communication within themselves. It's it's a really new form of communication that's been here all along, that we've been interacting with, but holds potential, truly unlocked potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree. And you mentioned the gods, and it's almost like, I think, in my conception, the gods are actually like very jealous of.
Right now, 100%, exactly. Yes,
Yeah, because we do have the ability to tap into that level of interactivity with each other, but they're so, especially, you know, in certain mythologies, they're so disparate from one another, and they don't even understand each other, let alone understanding humanity many of the times, and many of the myths. I mean, like, at least that's the way I kind of interpret them and understand them.
Absolutely. I think you hit it on the head with jealousy. I mean, I'm thinking of like the progenitive force, and it's like the progenitive force lost its mind and became schizophrenic out of jealous fit of rage.
Yeah, it's like we're just jealous of ourselves for some fucking reason, or like envious,
jealous of this fracture. I think jealous of the fracture, of qualities afforded to us by the fracture.
Do you feel, especially like to go back into our kind of Kabbalistic phase of things, do you feel that gods are actually even a higher form that's closer to the creative source? Because that's the way a lot of people attribute the gods or God or whatever. And I'm almost over time just kind of like, no, I don't really think so. I think that's all dependent upon our own interpersonal framework.
Right.
But I might be getting too psychological too. I don't know.
No, the Egyptians, I could understand why my dad was really just always gravitated towards the Egyptians. So the Egyptians called gods netters. So that's more like nature or aspects of the world, consciousness itself, the heavens, like aspects of this life. Mm-hmm. The other thing that really blew my mind was RZA, Wu-Tang Clan, you know, RZA Jizza, you know.
Oh,
rapper.
Fuck yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
so RZA was on Lex Friedman's podcast and really blew my mind. So RZA says God is a standalone term for strength, wisdom, and beauty. So within that definition, I can be God, you can be God. You know, that's a really workable definition. Strength, wisdom, and beauty. Like America, like we could strive for America to have strength, wisdom, beauty. Like, you know, that's a really beautiful, workable construct of God, to where we can embody it, we can place it on things, we can use it as a function. He's Muslim, so he goes to Allah, and but there was an Indian comic that was like, oh, okay, so what's your God's name? Your God hasn't told you his name? He doesn't even trust you enough to tell you his name? So, you know, RZA draws on so many things. So like Islam, I stimulate light and matter. That's, you know, so there's many different concepts. I think if we're to go back to every world religion and kind of where they overlap, everyone has kind of an unknowable. Like, how much do Christians talk about the Holy Ghost? You know, that's kind of like this unknowable realm. Or like the Egyptians had Ptah, like that Ptah, you know, figure, Ptah god. But every culture kind of has an unknown, and then known. You know, okay, here's the natures, here's the aspects that we know and work with. And so within that definition, it really encapsulates God could be a standalone for Sephra. Like if we're going back to the Kabbalah, like what is Malkuth? What is Yesod? Okay, those are very different functions. You know, they have a geographical relation.
But they're all God. They're God. It goes back to. It actually goes back to this. It really does, because God is a function, and I think like there's a Kabbalist out there that has a book out called God as a Verb.
Nice, I love that.
I can't remember who it is, but
okay, I'm looking that up too.
Yeah, and because that's like really what it is. It's not this like singular source or person or thing or identity It's what this is, the activity. And I wouldn't even necessarily say the output, but I think the actual like activity of like what's happening in this conscious moment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
RZA's fucking cool, man. RZA and GZA.
You know, he's training to be an orchestral composer. So
really,
humanity's got some fucking amazing music to look forward to.
Oh, that's awesome.
Fuck this notion that there's no new music. That's such a bullshit, lazy fucking notion.
Oh yeah, that's only people who are just like listening to the radio. Like that's why there's no new music, because you're only listening to the same shit over and over and over again. There's incredible musicians out there. There's incredible artists out there. It's like if you're only paying attention to the meme, and I'm not knocking because I enjoy mainstream stuff too, so I'm not like knocking it.
One of my favorite bands, so it just come about, there are these women that went to school together that played instruments, and they played together before, but then COVID, one was visiting the other before COVID hit, and they got locked down on the Isle of Man, and they're the greatest band, and they're like worldwide now. It's called Wet Leg, and you should check out their first song was Chase Long, which is really good, but you should check out Wet Dream. So Wet Leg, Wet Dream. They're dressed as lobsters. Oh my god. Their new one, the chorus of their new one is all I need to set me on a higher path is a bubble bath. Like something along the lines of that. It's brilliant. And they're like, they bring such fun to pop music, to a genre that would normally be something that put you asleep, you know, and they're really waking you up to the moment. There's something that I found really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, they're no Sun Ra or anything like that, but yeah. And my dad's album, I gotta plug my dad's album, Fear is the Mind Killer, Arnie Young and the Ructet. that's
hell yeah, you do. The only problem is that you only posted a link to where you can kind of listen to it, which I'll post a link down in here, but is there a link? Is there a link to like actually purchase a physical album?
Yeah, I have a friend who's a pirate radio DJ who was asking me the same question. I'll have to ask my dad that and see if there's like a place you could buy the album, or if people could get it. The only place I know right now is Spotify.
Yeah, not only was your father a, rocket scientist and magician who built his own fucking pyramid to initiate himself into the mysteries with, but also he's a fucking accomplished jazz musician.
And he did stained glass for a time, and one of his favorite stained glass pieces is called Medusa's mirror, and it's this black mirror, occult, wonderful, beautiful object.
And he made you.
And he made me.
Fucking accomplished individual. Accomplished individual. Yeah, I love that. I love the word. I don't know what it is. I've actually, I've always appreciated the Egyptian mindset, but I've been finding myself really drawn back to the Greek in the past few years, because I do think that the Greek pantheon was connected to that Neter ideology. The Greek gods, although they were spoiled brats and they were crazy, they represented still some of these primal powers, and like the older versions of the Greek gods too were more connected to like the gods of Gaul and that like the kind of the druidic sects as well. And so I've really been kind of leaning on that, and so like the Greek language has really been appealing to me in that, which is why nous is a word that when you say noosphere, and why I have it as a part of this like story I'm working on. I don't know why. It's one of those, just like with hieroglyphics with your dad, he understands them. They just click as he doesn't even need to describe or define what this symbol means, because he feels it in his primal nature. And that's kind of the way I feel with, I wouldn't say all of the Greek language, because I haven't gotten that deep into it, but so, you know, especially just like some of the words that we get that come from like psychology and the esoteric traditions and stuff like that, they just ring so true to me. It's like once I see that, you know, an idea comes from a word like that, like noose, it just, you don't even need to define that word to me. It feels so fucking right. And so that's probably part of that hive mind interconnectivity, and that reincarnative like aspect that we kind of talked about, and just the sense that the familiarity comes from that, like my flow right now, because I like how the way your dad describes it. He calls things a flow, not like a vibration or an energy or a life path. It's like flow.
Yeah.
My flow is just like chiming into that piece right now as it is, and it could flow someplace else later, but that's just like, that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I think my dad always pertains to that flow as a part of an ocean. You know, so you're like one little flow, you know, within an ocean. You know, so that kind of offers that expansiveness. I mean, I think a lot of people get lost in that of like, what good or what usefulness or what value does my one little tiny flow have in this ocean? But that whole ocean is supported by the individuality of your flow.
Yeah.
And others like you know, so it's this inverse, you know, like the one supporting the many and the many supporting the one kind of thing.
You're reminding me right now of a dream I had. Right around the time when you and I first encountered Baxley and we started our shamanic training together, which I had a lot of crazy dreams around that time. But I can't remember where exactly I was, but I was going into this like weird basement area of something, because the subterranean is always a part of my psyche for some reason. Again, those roots. But I was going into this basement area, and the inside of this basement area was almost like infinite, but it wasn't. The in terms of the breadth of what you could see was almost infinite, but the ceiling was really low. But the ceiling was also like mirrored, but you could see stars in it. I don't know, it's dreams. And the whole floor of this basement, which was like stretched as far as you could see outward, was all like water, and it was filled with all of these like miniature like gondola boat things that they're kind of like the kind of like thing that you would see, like, you know how like that like French kings used to float in those like gondolas or whatever, and a lot of them were like that, but they were part gondola, part person. So each gondola person had their own like little specific boat, and some of them were just all like fanning themselves, and it was like they would be kind of human, but also kind of like a slug, but also part of the boat itself. And then another person would just be miserable and horrible, and then another person would just be over there just like playing the guitar or something. But they were all boats, and they were just like, it was all crowded on this ocean, infinite ocean, and they were all just bumping into one another lazily. Like it was so weird. And I remember I had this feeling just sitting there in that dream for a while going, this is actually what everything is. It's like we're all just on this ocean lazily bumping into one another. We're part of the same ocean, but we all have our own thing going. Some of us over here playing the guitar, some of us are miserable, some of us are just chilling and eating bonbons, whatever, but it's all fucking awesome. Like the whole array of it that I was seeing was like, this is the coolest shit I have ever seen. Someday I'm gonna paint a painting of it. Someday I will.
Have you ever looked through the pictures of the Bhagavad Gita? Do you have much experience with that text, the epic?
I have a
As soon as you
version.
described that dream, like images from the Bhagavad Gita just flooded my mind.
I have a version of the Bhagavad Gita that Aldous Huxley wrote the forward for.
Oh wow!
Yeah, which is pretty cool. I don't have any kind of like illustrated text or anything. I remember reading the Bhagavad Gita quite a few years ago, and it was very inspiring, but I don't, and not a lot of it comes to mind. So maybe I need to go back and revisit it.
Well, what you should go back and revisit instead is because another thing that your dream hit me to is Salman Rushdie wrote a child book called Haroun and the Sea of Stories. and that is your dream perfectly as well. But
Salman Rushdie's pretty cool, but I haven't checked that out. That's awesome.
Yeah, oh my god. So Haroun was born in a sad city, the saddest of cities, a city so ruinously sad it had forgotten its name. That's how the book starts.
Oh my god. That's horrible. Poor Haroun.
The images from the Bhagavad Gita that I get are like, and I don't know how well this is going to come up, but this is from that book of Easy Journey to Other Planets. And so it's just like a sea of us bumping into each other.
Yes.
So those are kind of the images that I get that make me think of the Bhagavad Gita.
That's so
I
weird.
was never able to pronounce until Iron Butterfly. You know? Right? In the Bhagavad Gita, baby. So now you'll be able to pronounce it too. Anyone that struggled with that.
Oh my god. Never had an issue with it, but now I'm never going to hear that song another way again. Thank you.
In the Bhagavad Gita. I know, I'll never hear it the same too.
It's fucking great. That's fucking cool. I mean, that whole concept and notion. I love those old Hindu drawings. I need to like check those out, like a book like that out that would have those kind of images.
I mean, there's ones that very clearly look like nuclear war is being fought from chariots in the sky.
Right,
it's like,
right.
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah. What the hell were they tapping into? What in the world?
Yeah.
What in the world? Mm-hmm. Well, cool. I will check out Haroun and the Sea of Stories. I will check out Wet Leg, Wet Dream, and I'll also check out Ward, Colorado. Man.
All right, cool. I'm giving you slightly better things than let's see, Xavier Renegade Angel and Big Les Show.
I love those, by the way. They make me so fucking happy. Those shows are fucking great.
Good.
I wish I had something of equal value to send your way, but
my god, you have and I let's see, I have written here. Let's see, Gary Lachman and the Mumbo Jumbo book by Ishmael Reed and God is a Verb. So I'll be checking all those out.
Dude, too. Mumbo Jumbo is so good. You will.
I love it.
I'm so surprised. I'll totally link your dad's music in this video.
Oh, cool.
And I'm gonna link your YouTube channel so people can find many wonderful, significant wisdoms that you're passing on.
Thank you.
To the world.
So I'm just really having a Gnostic journey, and my YouTube channel is kind of just like serving to report it.
Right.
So it's kind of like unfolding through me. So I've rewritten the Love Part 2 twice now, and I will get that shot and uploaded, but it's all just kind of like unfolding as it's happening. So I pronounce my YouTube channel Orate, but I spell it AUR like the golden divine light, and then 8 like infinity. But I have an actual other meaning that AUR stands for anarchy, ultimatum, reverberation. So that's the war I'm waging.
You're gonna win that war.
Well, it's a love, so love's already won. I sitting firmly in the winner's seat.
Or soul. Okay.
Or art. Exactly.
Or art. Yeah.
I think art. I don't think we should ever use the word love again. I think we have a much better word, and it's art.
Yeah.
I art you.
I art you too. I totally art you too. I think art could actually be the substitute of many things. Like Clive Barker uses it in his books, he uses it as the word for magic.
Yeah.
They just refer to it as the art. I mean, and if you brought up Alan Moore earlier, and that's exactly how he refers to magic. It's just art. The person who the most adept magicians are the poets bringing pen to paper, the artist, the illustrator, those people that don't have to go through all of these rigorous like bullshit things to have the credibility to say I changed reality. They just do it. They're just able to change reality, like Edward Bernays. So that comes Bernays sauce, I believe is coming from Edward Bernays. So there was a time where eggs needed to be sold, and he needed to make money off of eggs, so he made Bernays sauce. If I'm remembering that story right, it's just like he's King Midas incarnate. Art.
Art, exactly.
But
a very different counterpoint to Alan Moore. Alan Moore is a very rich character, and I connect to him infinitely more than Edward Bernays. But if there was a whole being, it would be the two of them together that would encapsulate art pretty good.
The fucking Skeksis and the whatchamacallits in the Dark Crystal saga, like that's the Alan Moore and the Edward Bernays, and like when you bring them together, they would be the actual whole being, which is like a really good. That's the thing I learned best coming out of the path working, because people don't like when you try to talk about stuff like that. They're like, oh, so bad people like Putin or whoever, or like you're saying they're okay. And it's like, it's not about that. It's about that understanding that we don't get this without that. You just don't. It doesn't mean that you justify genocide or that you justify torture or the horrible things that happen. It's not about that. We're totally against that. You don't want suffering, but understanding that the universe is fucking cruel as well as beautiful, and like you don't get the package of reality without these dichotomies working the way that electricity works.
Absolutely.
Right? Yes. So it just makes perfect sense to me, and I don't know if it was a credit to the work that we've done together or the path working or what. I don't know.
I think and it's us. It's a credit to the our abilities to be aware of consciousness, because it's consciousness itself that's going through this journey.
Yeah.
And it's just our awareness of it that's tapping into that, as our own journey. But it's
right.
It's God psychotherapy, right? My psychotherapy is God's salvation. Like it's God's salvation is my working through this, my piecing through this.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, brother,
my salvation is God's psychotherapy. That's the way it went. Yes. My salvation is God. So I'm working on my salvation. But it could be so that God. It could be a little interchangeable.
My psychotherapy could be God's salvation too.
Well, because am I God? I mean, God hasn't even told me his name. So,
dude, Keter is the Malkuth of the unmanifest. So
Keter is the wow.
Yeah,
it is that. Say that again. Keter is the.
That's Dion Fortune's statement. Dion Fortune said Keter is the Malkuth of the unmanifest, and she said that really, if there's anything you ever need to know about reality ever, it's that one statement. All the other knowledge of Kabbalah, magic, all the esoteric traditions mean shit. But if you can understand that one statement, not like here, but like fully able to embody that statement.
Yeah.
It sends you down infinite loop after infinite loop after infinite loop. So like every universe that's being created is the ending point and the beginning of any other kind of universe. And it's just, that statement blew my mind when I read that statement.
I heard that before, but it hit me different because I'm working on this concept of like unheard voices. You know, so like as a country, you know, we're like coming to terms with like Native people and, you know, all of these unheard voices and our own biology of unheard voices. And I've assigned, you know, I somewhat jokingly, my mom didn't understand what a Karen was. And so I told her, oh, well, that's just an overheard voice. You see, you have unheard voices and overheard voices. So Malkuth is just the overheard voice. Malkuth is a Karen. And
I love it. I love it. Oh my God. So
and it's not even really the top of the tree, it's all the Sephra that's the unheard voices, because we've really only had two, you know, we've really only had Malkuth going on this whole time.
we really only fully truly understand Malkuth, really.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it so magnificent, because Malkuth is like the beginning of another Kether for whatever is the, so it's
well, and that's
like
where the
incredible.
Clifoth ends and Malkuth begins, exactly as in a Kether. Or Jessa Reed explains like why do babies cry is because all of a sudden you're dead, and then the light at the end of the tunnel is the light out of your mom's womb,
right.
And then you just died, and all of a sudden you're being birthed,
right.
And then that womb time was this unconscious time that was shared between your next life and your last life, you know,
right.
within that dynamic. And that's that.
Wow. Yeah, I feel you. I probably need to start wrapping this up.
Totally.
Which I hate, because I could fucking go all night with you, but when Autumn gets through her kind of trials that she's going through right now, I know that her and I have a few ideas of doing some videos with you as well, in terms of like even in the future just covering different like having conversations about different movies that we might like watch, and then we can like talk through some of those things together. But what we'd really like to do is have a reunion of this pathworking book.
Nice.
Pathworking book of this pathworking group that spawned the book for me, Shamanic Kabbalah, and just like all of us talk about that experience together. How we felt going through it, and and just kind of going crazy together would be fun.
I would love that. Yeah. I think that'd be important for humanity, because that's what consciousness is going through. I mean, I think the pathworking stand as foreshadowing. Yeah. You know, as what's happening to humanity. And so we have an intimate knowledge or an intimate perspective of that I think could really serve. And the perspective that I keep that gives me the most faith in humanity or hope in humanity is the most unconscious person I can think of. You know, the Mitch McConnells of the world, or, you know, pick a figure of like the most unconscious, has a view of the future that's as needed for the future as my view of the future. Mm-hmm. And I need to be okay with healing him, you know, like bringing him along, bringing everyone along on this journey of pathworking.
That's intense.
Yeah,
that's intense.
I'm going through this book for the second time, the complex PTSD workbook, except for this time I'm going through it understanding that I am all beings, like we're all one. So I'm going through it as the oneness of humanity, and
oh my God.
It's emotionally putting me through the ringer.
That's another book that I would just have to check out because that's crazy.
Yeah, and I'll actually have to check out a woman I went to high school with wrote a book about PTSD. I can't remember the name of it, but her name is I'll have to pick up that book and plug it too. I can't remember right now.
That'd be cool.
But then also the author of the Dancing Woolly Masters, Gary Zukav, Yeshe has us going through the Seed of the Soul, and that's also. I wouldn't be able to do the work on the complex PTSD through this new viewpoint without the Gary Zukav. God, the first let's see where I'm at, 60 pages of this book, I felt like he was like digging in my own mind and writing out my thoughts.
Wow.
Recent thoughts, like most recent thoughts. So that's another one to check out is The Seed of the Soul. And I mean, I can't even speak to it. It's like it's those concepts that haven't even made it yet into words. Like he has words for them and I don't even yet. But they're along the same lines of everything I've been going on and my YouTube journey, channel, as well. Just
it's nice. It's kind of like a I guess vlog is what they call it, but it's kind of like a virtual diary for you and just kind of your thoughts. And I'm hoping that it kind of gives people an insight into a mind that I know is like able to kind of break through a lot of the barriers that we normally have into experiencing the world around us, and stretches things a little bit. At least that's the way you're the fortune cookie, Brett, of consciousness.
Thank you. I mean, all I'm really trying to be is the right hand for incels, but
the same hand they used when to Jesus
or say
Christ.
They don't because they're involuntarily motherfucker, you're not comatose.
right. Oh my God, what a weird God. Like it's so weird how more conservative our world has gotten in so many ways. It's so weird how people are willingly restricting themselves because they're so afraid to live and so afraid to just.
There's this concept, and I don't know if you've run into it, but I discovered it through. There's a bunch of people on YouTube who have their what is your little logo, whatever your logo is, they have a logo of like a circle with two lines through it, and they only do the same post, and I forget what their post is, but they're all about this concept of ripping and tearing, of like life's meaningless, you just want to kill a whole bunch of people until you're killed, and that's the best way you could serve humanity. And it's like this really weak like incel notion, but it's like I've been trying myself, as much as I've like identifying with the lost cosmonaut, this being that just like got in a space shuttle and then it was lost to the universe. I'm also trying to identify with these kids that just like, they were never exposed to my dad's bookshelf. They don't know that anything exists beyond ripping and tearing. No women in their mindset will give them the time of day because they haven't learned what attraction is, what it is to be attractive. And they're experiencing something very interesting that I don't think humanity dabbles in much. So I think it's interesting for me to identify with that consciousness and afford them more options than ripping and tearing. Like, sure, do that, cool, no judgment, but also here's like the cosmic trigger, the cosmic what is it called in the Spandakrika? The cosmic
the sacred tremor.
Sacred tremor, thank you. The sacred tremor, exactly. Yeah. It's like there is nothing wrong with an incel that the sacred tremor can't sort out in a moment.
That's one of the best fucking books ever. I refer to that book all
Daniel
the time.
Odier, yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
Incredible shit.
Yes.
Everything goes back to the sacred tremor for me.
Yes. Yes.
Spinach, whatever it's
That's definitely what was in Popeye's pipe. Sacred tremor.
That's right. Well, dude,
love you, brother. We got to do much more of these. And anytime, absolutely.
I fucking love you to death. This is like so much
mutual.
Fun.
Absolutely.
And I don't care if if this fits in with any kind of like regular content on the channel or anything. It's just like, hey, it's Brett time.
Yeah.
It's the Brett hour or two.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I totally love you, and I'm gonna push pause here in a minute. We can talk afterward, but for everybody else out there, hope you enjoyed our time, and keep it psycho.
Yeah.